All right, welcome everyone to our Spring 2026 Project Grants for Organizations application overview and walkthrough. My name is Sarah Leonard. I'm the Deputy Director of Rhode Island State Council on the Arts, and in that capacity, I have the privilege of overseeing our Project Grants for Organizations program. Today, I will introduce you or reintroduce you to the Project Grants for Organizations program. We'll talk a little bit about how RISCA defines a project for the purposes of this grant program and provide you some examples. We'll go over eligibility, some of the funding rules and restrictions in this program, how you can start your application, what you want to have on hand, the evaluation criteria, and then I'll pop over to our actual application portal and walk you through the application itself. We'll also cover what other help is available to you as applicants or prospective applicants. All right, so Project Grants for Organizations supports arts and culture projects that are relevant and meaningful to Rhode Island communities. So in comparison with some of our other grant programs, Project Grant funds the broadest swath of cultural activities because so many things can fit into this bucket. We want applicants to know, and we advise our panelists of this too, that a project that has impact on a small number of folks is equally as valuable as an event that maybe 1,000 people attend. So you might go deep with 15 people over the course of 3 events or 3 classes, or you might have a one-day festival that lots of people come to and are sort of in and out. Both of those are valued and valuable options. It's one of the questions we get quite a lot. So in Project Grants for Organizations this year, award amounts will be up to $6,000. Partial awards are very common for us. So given the amount of funding that we have, we typically award full funding to the top 5 to 6 scoring applications. And then partial awards. The commitment that we make is that we will not fund you at a level that is less than half of what you ask for or $1,000, whichever is more. That being said, and I'll talk more about this in a bit, if you were to receive a partial award, we absolutely encourage you to consider revising the scope of the project. We do not expect you to accomplish the same things for less money. And if you found yourself in that situation, you would simply reach out to me, tell me what you're thinking. I'll most likely say, great, that sounds fantastic, and you'll be off and running. The folks who can apply to this program are 501c3 nonprofit organizations based in Rhode Island, or groups that are fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Rhode Island. And if you think that may apply to you, we can talk more about that during the question and answer part of this program today. So our timeline, the grants are open now. They opened on February 1st of this year. The due date is April 1st at 11:59.00 p.m. So not 11:59 and 59 seconds. When the clock strikes 11:59, the application portal will close and we are not able to reopen it. The funding period for this year's applications is for projects occurring between July 1st of 2026 and June 30th of 2027. That is the state's fiscal year. Grant notifications we anticipate sending in mid-June. It's usually in the last 2 weeks of June. We say that's tentative because it does depend on the date at which the legislature and governor sign the budget. The legislature approves it and the governor signs the budget, that we're able to send those notifications. And final reports for these projects will be due July 31st of 2027, so 1 month after the eligible project period closes. So what does RISCA consider a project? For us, a project is defined as a discrete set of connected activities with a distinct beginning and an end. So a project might be a one-time event like a festival. A show could be a show that has multiple performances, but maybe you're doing one choral program and you're going to perform it 3 nights in a row. That would count as one thing. Or an exhibition. It could also be a series, like a roster of classes, thematically connected concerts, productions, or arts programs. But one organization could not apply to support its entire season of programming, since that represents the totality of an organization's program and falls outside our definition of a project. As I mentioned, we do have a general operating support program for organizations, and that's where organizations can apply for that type of support. So here are a few different examples. This is not by any means exhaustive, but just to give you a sense of the breadth. It could be a free day-long summer cultural festival at a public park with live performances that include Rhode Island-based performing artists. It might be a free 8-week series of art classes led by a teaching artist at a social service nonprofit for 12 adults that have developmental disabilities. Or it could be a low-cost weekend dance program for 8 young people within a specific cultural community, taught by artists or culture bearers from that specific tradition with the intention of preserving and perpetuating those cultural traditions among future generations. A couple of things I do want to make clear. You are allowed to charge admission for programs that you are applying to us for funding for, these examples, privilege-free ones, but that is not considered a detriment to your application. And again, you see illustrated here some that might serve many people in a passing way, other programs that go deep with a set of 12 individuals or a group of students. And then core to all of our funded programs is a connection and value to the community being engaged with by the public. So we want to see that these projects are providing, and you'll see this language in the application, a positive and purposeful experience for the participants. And depending on your project, that definition of participants could vary quite a bit, right? It could be the folks who are creating the art, it could be participants in a class, it could be audience members, any number of things. So we define that quite broadly, but we want to see, and the panel will typically responds well to projects that are meaningfully engaging the community in some way. And this is connected to our mandate to serve all Rhode Islanders. All right, eligibility. So as an applicant, you will need to acquire a unique identity ID, a UEI, if you don't already have one. This is a number that is provided through the federal government. We have more information on our website. You do not need to do a full registration. And you can find information on sam.gov about what to do if you just need the UEI number but aren't trying to register to be a direct federal recipient. For our purposes, you just need the number. That does have to be in place before our applications can go to the panel. But if you have requested one and are still waiting for the number to come in as the application due date approaches, please contact me and I can provide you with a proxy number to use in the short term while we wait for that UEI number to come to you. If that's not a process you have started, I recommend going ahead and getting a start on that sooner rather than later. You are eligible if this project is not receiving direct funding from another RISCA grant. So we don't allow for, say, an organization to apply for a project and also an artist to apply for doing their work on the same project. So one grant per project idea, one grant per organization as well in any given grant cycle. You are also eligible if this organization is not requesting support for this project or aspects of the project through another RISCA grant program. The organization is not applying for another RISCA grant at the same deadline, so you can't bring 3 projects forward in the same year in project grants for organizations. You'll have to choose one to apply for in this year. And the organization cannot currently be receiving general operating support for organizations from Rhode Island State Council on the Arts. The asterisk that I will put there for 2026 is that our general operating support program is going to reopen to new applications this summer. If you are not currently in the program, you can apply for a project grant at this deadline, receive that grant, and still apply for general operating support in the summer this year as well. And I can answer questions about that later if you have any. All of our programs, the programming related to your project has to occur in spaces that are compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. The NEA has a good number of resources, publications, checklists, etc., so that you can determine whether that your space does fit those requirements, but that is necessary to ensure that any Rhode Islander can participate, regardless of ability or mobility. The funded portion of this project activity does have to take place in Rhode Island, and organizations are only eligible if they are not delinquent on any final reports from previous RISCA grants. If you have a question about whether that might apply to you, just feel free to contact me and I can let you know. Okay, in order to be eligible, your organization must be a nonprofit conducting business and incorporated in the state of Rhode Island with 501c3 tax exempt status from the Internal Revenue Service. You'll need to be registered with the Rhode Island Secretary of State. You can check that on the Secretary of State's office, but if you are incorporated in the state of Rhode Island, you should be covered there. The organization must be governed by a revolving board of directors, trustees, or advisors drawn from the community and that are shown to be actively involved in the governance of the organization. So we want to know that you have a board of directors and that they meet and are meeting their duties of loyalty, care, and obedience. If your organization is not a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, you may be able to apply using a fiscal sponsor that meets the above requirements. And those are typically mission-aligned organizations that are willing to take on the administrative responsibilities of your grant, receive the funds on your behalf, and are ultimately responsible for meeting the reporting requirements on your behalf. So if you have more questions about eligibility, whether you're incorporated in Rhode Island, if you think you might need a fiscal sponsor, I want to direct you both to our website, which has a good swath of resources available, arts.ri.gov/grants/project.grants-organizations, or just drop me a line, sarah.leonard@arts.ri.gov, and we can help get you connected with the resources you need to determine whether you are eligible or might need a fiscal sponsor. All right, funding rules and restrictions. I know this is a lot of brass tacks at this point, but we want to make sure that you know all the nitty-gritty so that your time is well spent on your application. So, of course, all grant awards are contingent upon the availability of funds from the Rhode Island State General Assembly and the National Endowment for the Arts. That is where RISCA receives its budget. By the time we get to grant awards, we will not award money we do not have in our state appropriation and through our federal partnership agreement. That is why we put a tentative asterisk next to the award notification date in case we're delayed in being notified by those folks. As I said, the maximum award in the category is $6,000. Partial awards are common. They'll be no less than half of what you ask for or $1,000, whichever is higher. Grant applications are considered on a competitive basis. So each application is scored against evaluation criteria, which are available to you as well, by a group of 3 to 5 panelists who are artists and arts administrators and working in the arts and culture sector in Rhode Island. The award amounts may vary from cycle to cycle, depending on available funds, number of applications, and panel decision making. So both in terms of the pool we have available in each program and specific dollar amounts. But for this year, it is $6,000 per award as a maximum. We've already talked about partial awards. If you receive one, you may absolutely modify the scope of the project. You'll just reach out to me and we'll discuss what you have in mind. Organizations who are granted funds always have the option of declining the grant award with no penalty. Sometimes you experience a change in staffing or other things that might impact organizational capacity, and you realize you may not be able to implement the project as planned that year. You can let us know that. It will not have any negative repercussions for the organization in the future or for future applications. And if you receive a grant, you will need to credit RISCA on all of your marketing materials. And we encourage you to let your legislators know about your award and invite them to your event as well. There are some non-allowable expenses, and this is by virtue of the fact that this is public funds, and part of what is awarded are federal funds or matching funds. So the grant funding cannot be used on capital improvement projects, construction, renovation, or major permanent equipment purchases. If you have a question about what constitutes a major permanent equipment purchase, please reach out. They cannot be used to address, eliminate, or reduce existing debt or as a contribution to an endowment fund. These are project dollars. They cannot be used for development or fundraising expenses, so social events or benefits or any other fundraising expenses. They cannot be used for entertainment or hospitality, like food for a reception or party or gala. Specific costs that have core programmatic purposes that are included in your budget may be allowable. So if there's a reason that food plays a core programmatic purpose in the project you're trying to accomplish, that's a time to reach out in advance of your application to ensure that those expenses would be eligible. Grant funding also cannot be used on prizes or awards for an event, person, or organization. You cannot re-grant the funds to other artists or organizations through an application process. We get questions about that because it doesn't mean you cannot hire and compensate artists. You can absolutely do that. That is not re-granting through a competitive process. What you're not able to do is take RISCA funds and then hold your own grant program using those funds as part of the awards. That cannot be used for activities associated with graduate or undergraduate degree programs or a program for which academic credit is received. They can't be used for projects that proselytize or promote religious activities or that take part as part of a religious service. They cannot be used for programming, performances, or exhibits that are unavailable or inaccessible to the public. And that includes programming that occurs in a space that does not comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And they cannot be used for expenses that are incurred or activity that happens outside of the award period. All right, before you start your application, here are the things that we recommend gathering together so that you're able to move through it relatively swiftly. Your 501c3 letter of determination from the IRS. This is that letter that says, congratulations, you have been awarded tax exempt status under this code. Some of our organizations are quite old. You might even have multiple iterations. You might have a letter that says, yes, we looked you up and you were given tax exempt status on this date. That's okay, but this is not the same as the letter from the IRS that grants you an employee identification number, or excuse me, employer identification number. That is separate. If you aren't sure if what you're looking at is your determination letter, feel free to drop it in an email to me and I can let you know whether that's what we're looking for. You'll need to include a recent 990 from one of your past 3 fiscal years. That can be the full 990, the 990EZ, or the 990N postcard, depending on the budget size of your organization, whichever is the applicable document for you to file. If it is the postcard, it can be the acknowledgement you get that it has been submitted. Just that easy little bit there. If you're using a fiscal sponsor, you will need their letter of determination, their UEI, their recent 990, and a letter from them for which we provide a template because they will be the legal recipient of the funds. All right, you'll also want to gather together your project budget. It is required to use the RISCA organization budget template. We'll take a look at that together in a moment. The reason that these are required is to give all of our applicants even footing in the eyes of the panel. So some organizations that apply have much more experience putting together a project plan or budget than others do. And we want the panelists to be reviewing these applications on the merits and content of the application, not on the format of a document. So we provide a very simple budget template to you. And again, we'll go over that in a bit. There's a project plan. This is going to highlight the key activities during the course of your project. A bio or CV or resume of the artist or artists instrumentally involved in your program. Artistic work samples, so samples of up to three um, artistic work or project documentation samples. And what we're looking for here in project grants for organizations is work samples that help the panel see that you are prepared and equipped to do the type of project you're proposing. So if I'm proposing to do a series of 6 guitar classes with middle school age youth, I might include one that shows you what a great guitar player I am, but I also am going to want to include video or audio clips or photos or project descriptions of when I might have done work that's kind of like this before, or when my organization did. So we want to give the best foot forward for the panel to say, wow, I can see this organization's really ready to do this type of programming. If you haven't done this exact program before, that's okay. What might be similar that you could highlight in those work samples? A work sample list, we also provide a template for this that you're required to use. All you're doing with the work sample list is orienting the panel to what they're going to see in the work samples. So you're going to say, work sample number 2 is photos from the guitar workshop I did last May at the Office of Children, Youth, and Learning in Columbia, or Cumberland, excuse me. That's all you need to say. You don't need to go into tons of detail. This is just so the panel knows what they're looking at when they go to look at your work samples. And as I said, there is a template for that as well. And a testimonial. This can be quotes, it could be a testimonial letter. Sometimes folks use screenshots of social media posts that people have made after attending an event where they acknowledge the organization. So you can think expansively about what could be included in a testimonial. All right, the evaluation criteria. So every application that we receive is reviewed by a panel of 3 to 5 folks who, as I said, are either working artists, arts administrators, or otherwise involved in the arts and culture community. They will review each application against the evaluation criteria. They are not comparing 2 applications to each other. So they review it against the criteria and provide scores. So the panel reviewers are going to look at 3 sections of your application: the logistics, artistic vibrancy and impact, which is how RISCA interprets the National Endowment for the Arts mandate to assess artistic merit and excellence. For our purposes, that's artistic vibrancy and impact. And a program-specific area, which for project grants for organizations is focused on community engagement. In the logistics section, the evaluation criteria are that the application clearly states what will be done, by whom, when and where things will take place, and how the project will happen both logistically and financially. They'll also be looking to see that the applicant indicates relevant metrics to measure project. We'll take a look at progress, We'll take a look at that when we look at the application. We provide a list of potential metrics in a checkbox, as well as an other category if you are measuring something else. What we're looking for there is a brief indication of how you're defining success for your project. And we'll prompt you with questions that you'll see when we go through the application for all of these things. If you are submitting the application and you don't have the location solidified yet, you'll tell us the logistics you do have solidified and let us know where you are. Maybe you'll say, we're in final negotiations with 2 potential parks to host our event. Or we are currently talking to potential partners in Pawtucket, because that's where we want to hold our event, right? So that's okay. You'll just give us as much information as you have. The panel likes to understand what's going on. They also have been in your shoes and understand that sometimes it takes a little longer to finalize those last artists for a program or things like that. The artistic and vibrancy and impact section, there are going to be 3 criteria they're evaluating the application against. One is art central to the project? We are Rhode Island State Council on the Arts, and you might be amazed to know that we get applications for projects that are not arts related from time to time. But our mandate and mission focus on the arts. So we're looking for projects where art is at the center. We're looking for evidence that the artist or artists will provide a positive and purposeful experience for the participants. That's our question of many P's. And that is one of the questions and has a direct link to this evaluation criteria. And that the project provides access to or engages underserved communities as defined by the National Endowment for the Arts. We do provide that definition. It has to do with those who have had limited access to the arts by virtue of geography, race or ethnicity, disability, and a fourth one that I'm forgetting right now, but we have the definition in the application. And then in the program specific category, the evaluation criteria is that the project actively engages participants in making, experiencing, or learning about art. When we go through the application, you will see that there is a very direct connection between each question and the evaluation criteria. These evaluation criteria, which are also available on our website on the Project Grants for Organizations page, are exactly the same criteria that the panelists see. There's no super secret behind the scenes evaluation going on. It is all out in the open and upfront. All right. There is more help available as you progress through your application. We're recording, as you know, today's webinar. We also record our other webinars that we do during the grant support season, and those are posted to RISCA's YouTube channel. For project grants for organizations, we will be having some Zoom drop-in office hours on March 12th. So if after today you get to start on your application, you run into a couple questions, I will be there on Zoom just waiting for you to come and chat with me and ask your questions. I also do still have some one-on-one meetings available, and you're welcome to email me. Please, please, please don't wait until the last minute. The sooner I hear from you, the better chance I have to help. My inbox and voicemails tend to get very full during the last couple of weeks, and I do my very best to get back to everyone, and sometimes we just run out of hours in the day. So the sooner I hear from you, the sooner we can get something on the calendar or I can address your questions. And as I said, that grant portal will close at 11:59 p.m. And as much as we love you and would love to be available at 11:55 p.m., when something is glitching to provide you with tech support, that is not something we're able to do. So if we hear from you, though, at 3 o'clock that afternoon, we can jump online with you and try to help you find a solution. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint now, and I'm going to switch over to walking you through the application itself. So bear with me for a moment while I switch over, and keep jotting those questions down if you have them. We'll tackle them at the end. All right, and I'm going to move some things around on my screen here. All right, so this is the RISCA website, and I wanted to start you here so you can, are you seeing that? Can I get a thumbs up from the folks in the room? Great, I see some nodding, wonderful. So I wanted you to be able to see the path to get to more information. So on the RISCA website, you can click on grants. Sometimes I know the drop downs don't show, so if it doesn't, I'll narrate. You'll click on our grants and scroll down through lots of other exciting programs to project grants for organizations. If you click there, you will get to the page that's going to have all the tips and tricks and resources we can give you, though also back on that grants page, we do have an applicant resources set of FAQs that spans programs. So on the Project Grants for Organizations page, you'll see a recap of a lot of the information I've covered today. On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see that you can download a PDF of the complete grant guidelines, which are also the text of the page here. Please, please, please review those thoroughly before you dive into your application. About 95% of the questions we're asked are covered in those guidelines. So take a look there to see if you can find it, and if not, we are here to help. You can also download a PDF of the application questions if you just want to get a sneak peek before you're into the portal. You can download the templates I mentioned for the budget, the project plan, the work samples, the fiscal sponsor here, as well as being able to see the grant evaluation criteria, just exactly how the panelists will see them. If you keep scrolling down on the right-hand side, you'll see this handy link that says proceed to the online application in the UNA Grants portal. If you have applied for project grants for organizations before, you did it in a different system. We're going to be in a new system now that's the statewide grant making system. And that is going to be a change. So it'll be a little bit different. All right. So when you click on that, you will get to a login screen for the UNA Grants portal. It will give you a prompt if you need to create an account there. And if you already have one because your organization also applies for funding from the Department of Environmental Management, great, you'll have one. It'll be the same login. So you'll create that. That link is going to take you straight to, let me actually click on it for you. If we click on proceed to it, this is going to take you straight to PGO FY27. That's what you want to see, project grants for organizations. And you're going to click this little check mark button that says apply. We have a complete step-by-step walkthrough that the Grants Management Office did for us on our YouTube channel that will take you through the technical aspects of the application. Exactly where to click for what, how to edit, how to save. So if you have questions like that, I'm going to refer you to that YouTube video just in the interest of time here today. But you'll click apply. That's where it'll give you a login screen. When I do that, I'm already logged in, so it's just pulling up my application. But otherwise, you'd log in and go from there. So you can see that I have started an application here. I have a sample. If you start your work and save it and log back in, you'll see the same thing. So I'm going to click on my project grants for organizations, and you'll see that I have a draft in progress for a fictional project that we made up called Harmony in the Park. So if I'm going back into edit, I'll click on that. And that's what we're going to use as a walkthrough so you can see something that actually has text filled in. So this is a sample project. This application number is auto-generated. Don't worry about that. That's back-end grant system stuff. The first thing you're going to be able to do is add team members. So Patty, if you start the application, but you want Christy to be able to go in too, to be able to write parts of the grant, you can add her as a team member. Christy will have to create her own account too, but then they can both be linked to this application. It'll send an invitation basically to link back. So that way, two different folks can log in and see this. It's a great idea if you think anyone else might be involved because, if one of you wins the lottery and flies off to Fiji, you want someone to be able to log in and complete the final report at the end of the grant period. Okay, so we have multiple different sections here. We're going to be working in the submission stage. That's when you're putting your submission together. And you will see 3 forms under that. Core information, the project grants for organizations FY27, and a State of Rhode Island standard application form. The first and third forms are standard state forms that we have to include. The content that we talked about that will be reviewed by the panel is all coming from this second project grants for organizations section. So let's walk quickly through those. In the core information form, you'll fill in your project title. You're going to be asked to fill that in a few different places across the forms. And that's to ensure that the panel can see what they need to see in addition to the state forms having what they need. You'll give us your organization, that UEI number. Again, you'll reach out to me if you don't have it in time. Your employee identification number is optional. I'm going to move through this part really quickly because I want to get to the content area. You're going to fill in your organization's address and then the authorized representative. So who can sign, who's responsible. You'll also be asked for a business or finance representative and a project representative. Do you notice I filled in myself for all of these? For a lot of organizations, that's going to be the same person, the same board member or executive director, no problem. You can repeat as many times as you need to there, just cut and paste. And then you also have the option to add any additional team members. You can also put yourself there if you need to. Okay, so no problem if that's the same person throughout. When I get finished filling in that information, I would have clicked edit to actually update it, which I'll do now. So you can see you can save it as a draft, or I can say, great, I've double and triple checked it. I've gotten my teammate to check it. I'm done. I'm going to save that as complete now. When I do that, I'll see that this core information chart is now green and I can move on. You can also move on when it's still in draft stage. You don't have to complete one section. So this is where I want to focus our attention. This is the content that will be reviewed by RISCA staff for eligibility. Staff review only for eligibility. So we'll do that initial screen. We'll make sure we can open all of your links, the documents you uploaded. If we can't, you will hear from us. We don't just toss it to the side and say, oops, I couldn't open it and carry on. You will hear from us, and we have the opportunity to correct small errors like that. We cannot change substantive application information after the due date. So I'll go into edit this form. The first questions have to do with eligibility. So all the things I went over in the eligibility section of the presentation, you'll be asked if you're a nonprofit or fiscally sponsored organization, if you're applying using a fiscal sponsor. Any field with an asterisk means it's required. Obviously, the name of your fiscal sponsor is not required because you don't have to have one. When you need to upload, you'll see a box that looks like this with this up arrow that says add file. So if you were using a fiscal sponsor, you would upload that letter there. There's an eligibility checklist you'll complete. And then we also will ensure that you are incorporated in Rhode Island. If you're not, but you meet requirements listed, you can check there. You can indicate for us whether or not you will accept partial funding. The panel does not see that information, so it won't impact their scoring at all. That's for us to know, so that when we see the scores that come back, we can make a determination about whether you are one of the ones that scores highly enough to receive full funding. If you're not interested in accepting partial funding, then we would carry on with that information. You'll upload your 501c3 letter of determination. And I'll show you one of the file additions in another place further down the application. You'll upload that recent 990, 990EZ, or 990N. For a lot of our content areas, you will see that we provide some instructional text so that you don't have to keep flipping back and forth to the guidelines. We want to have it all in one place for you. So this gives you the options. If your nonprofit is brand new, and so you have not had the opportunity to file a 990 yet, you will upload a Word document in its place indicating that to us. Okay, so add that file there. So all of that was eligibility. The panel will not see that information. That is for RISCA staff to ensure that you're in good standing with the IRS and are an eligible recipient. If you are eligible, you go to panel. The panel will review, as I said before, the logistics section, the artistic vibrancy and impact section, and that program-specific community engagement. So my organization that I've made up is called Harmony Arts Rhode Island. So I'm going to fill that in here. If your organization is a DBA, if you're doing business under another name, do be sure to provide us with your legal name as well. I'm going to put my mission statement. So Harmony Arts Rhode Island uplifts local musicians and artists by fostering an inclusive community. We celebrate smaller artists, providing resources, support, etc. You will see a character limit under most boxes. We have gone through a grant streamlining process to keep the application manageable for our applicants. So do take note of those character limits. If you want to draft your responses in Word and do a character check, it does include spaces. I'll show you in a minute what happens if it goes over the character limit. But do take note of those character limits. They're the same for everybody. And then the project name. So mine is called Harmony in the Park. The other thing I want to say about the character limits is this. All of our panelists are already bought into the value of the arts. So you don't need to use precious character count justifying that the arts are worth funding. Everyone's already on board. So that might be different than if you're applying to a more general funder, right? So don't waste your precious characters there. Everyone's bought into that, and everyone's bought into the fact that artists and arts administrators should be compensated for their work. So now you're going to provide us with a project summary. This is a 2 to 3 sentence description of your project. And this is where we pull information for promotional purposes and reporting to the legislature and our federal partner about what's been funded. So we ask that you talk about the organization in the third person, like ABC organization is holding a series of outdoor summer concerts as opposed to we will be doing this. Whoops. I didn't read the instructions very well, did I? I said we'll be hosting Harmony in the Park. So I could have done a better job there. What would happen then is when we do those promotional things, we'll just tweak the language as we need to make it fit and adapt. So that's a brief project summary. It's giving the panel that initial context for what you're doing. You'll then indicate how much you're requesting, up to $6,000 with a minimum of $500. You're going to give us your project start and end dates. That might be the whole funding period of July 1st to June 30th, or you might be doing a project that's from August 13th to 15th. Either one is fine. There's no value on one over the other. My project is going to start in August and end in June. So next, we're going to indicate the project location. Mine's going to take place at the Goddard Memorial State Park. I'm going to provide the address. And now I'm going to go through this checklist, the intended participants or audiences that I think my project might serve. For some programs, this is going to be super specific. It's going to be one thing. We're serving preschoolers under age 5. Done. End of conversation. For others, like my festival in the park, my concert series, it's going to be quite broad. So I'm going to check all of the different groups here that I am intending to include. So some of these I might not check unless I'm going to do some specific outreach to those communities, but you can check all that apply here. All right, so we'll go through, and I realize that you're only able to see just a bit of the page at a time, just a feature of the screen I'm working on here. If there's a community that you are intending to serve that we have not listed, fantastic, no problem. You'll just check the other population box here and then fill that in this optional field. Please provide us with the name or names of the artists that you anticipate having involved. If you aren't sure yet, if you're still finalizing the musicians for your concert because it's not happening until May of 2027, you can tell us that here. You could also say, we're still finalizing next year's musicians. Last year, here's who we had. And that would give the panelist a sense of the type of artist that you would be including. So think creatively about how you can provide some contextualizing information if you don't have the specific details ironed out yet. If you have any partner organizations for this project, you can indicate those and the role that they'll be playing in the process. All right, so next you're going to upload a project plan. One of the things I love about our new system is that you can download the template right here above where you will upload your completed template. So it's right there for you if you didn't already download it from the website. The project plan template looks like this. And what we're asking you to complete is a list of the key steps in the process of implementing your project. This one is a whole festival, so we have quite a few steps in the project. Yours may have more or less. We don't need to know every last tiny detail, but we're going to want to see the key inflection points along the way in your process. That communicates to the panel that you've really thought through the logistics and you understand the steps required to get this project from concept to actuality, because they want to highly score and privilege funding projects that are going to happen and that are going to have a positive impact on Rhode Islanders. All right, so that's what our project plan looks like. So you'll download that template and you'll click Add File here. You can select what you need. I'm going to select my project plan, upload it, and we're all set. Our systems typically have trouble with Mac formatted documents, numbers files, pages files, things like that. It tends to do fine with Excel and DocX. When in doubt, save it as a PDF because we know we can always access that and we're less likely to encounter formatting problems on the panelists' end. We want your information to come through as clearly as possible. So I mentioned the metrics for success before. All we're asking you to indicate is what you'll be measuring as it aligns to the goals of your project. Which thing you select is not an evaluation criteria. That you select a metric or metrics that relate to the purpose of your project is what we're looking for. So for mine, it might be about the number of participants. It might be about how satisfied they are. And maybe I'm going to do a post-event survey to find out how much they enjoyed the performance, because that's something my organization's really focused on right now. It might be about the artistic growth of the members of my community chorus, and that's how I'll be measuring success. There's no right or wrong here. We provide a few examples, and then we give you two potential other categories, each of which is associated with a box. So if I want to measure something else, I'm just going to click Other, and then I'm going to say that I want to measure whatever it is. I don't know. Nothing creative is coming to me right now. But if you have another metric that you are working with, you can add that there. You'll then signify that you understand what the funds cannot be used for. We reviewed those earlier in the presentation. They're outlined again here in the application. And you will indicate that yes, you agree to those. You'll also upload your project budget. The project budget template looks like this. It's a very simple form. Again, the download is right above the upload in the application form, so it'll be right there for you. The download is as an Excel file. And then again, I recommend, if you can, converting it to PDF just so that it comes through really clearly. And I'll show you, though, even though this is a PDF, I lost a column, and so you have to scroll way down to get my notes. Uh-oh, that's not the best. We want to make sure all those columns get on the same page if we can. So it's a pretty simple budget. We're asking you to indicate what you're requesting from RISCA, any other income you have associated with the project. This does not need to be your full organization budget. We're just looking at the budget for the project you're proposing. And then the expenses. You'll note that we indicate that A through K here are all things that need to be eligible expenses. If you have other expenses for the project that aren't eligible, that's okay, provided that you have other funding to cover those. So what we are looking for here is that this income and expense line match. It's okay, we understand that some of this is going to be projected income and that the scope of the project might change to adjust expenses if not all of that income comes in. All right. The last column that I didn't do such a great job getting on the same page down here is the notes column. So if you say we're going to spend the full $6,000 on artist fees, fantastic. That's totally fine. Give me a sense of how that breaks down in the notes. I don't need every last detail, but you might say we're providing a stipend of $2,000 to each of 3 artists who will be, teaching our classes or whatever it might be. So it doesn't need to be exhaustive, but just give the panel some notes. Panelists like to feel clear on the project and its details. That doesn't mean they need every nitty-gritty detail. They're reading 20 to 25 of these, but they want to be clear that you know how that money is going to be spent and that they can be confident in that. All right, I'm going to go back to our form because we're getting close on time here. So again, here's the download for the template. Here's the upload. We'll click and add that just like we did before. Artistic vibrancy and impact. You remember those 3 evaluation criteria. One was, is art central to the project? The first question is, how is art central to the project? So we've tried to link these up as clearly as we possibly can. So here's my response for Harmony in the Park. Making and sharing art is the foundation and spirit of Harmony in the Park. The event provides a platform for artists of varying disciplines to showcase their work and gives members of the communities free access to high-quality art and entertainment. It showcases and celebrates the diverse artistic expressions that make up Rhode Island's cultural landscape, etc. But look what happened. I was in the middle of a sentence and I hit 1,000 characters. So what will happen if we do that is it's going to cut us off mid-sentence, and you will see it will say max reached 1,000 out of 1,000. That's your cue that you need to go in and pare it down. With such a limited character count, you want to get right to the point and give the panel exactly the most vibrant description you can. The next criteria was about how the artists involved are going to provide a positive and purposeful experience for participants. So here's the matching question. How will the artists involved provide a positive and purposeful experience for the participants? The question, as you see here, may appear cut off. It depends entirely on the size of your browser window. But if you mouse over it, you will always see the full question appear in a gray box over the question. So I'm going to say for us, the participating artists are those who work or have worked with Harmony Arts Rhode Island, or those who have been auditioned, interviewed, and selected to be highlighted at the festival. These artists reflect our mission. Together, we aim to make this festival a experience positive through the celebration of art, artists, and the beautiful state of Rhode Island. These key points demonstrate how we aim to achieve this goal. Our location was selected for its central location in the state, making it more accessible. Artists can host workshops that allow festival goers to learn new creative skills, etc. I won't read you the whole thing. Bullets are fine. Whatever format you present it in to give the clearest sense of what is happening is what we want to see. But you'll see that once again, I wrote too much because I was so excited about my project and it cut me off. We don't want you to stop mid-sentence, so do check those amounts. Then the third criteria was about underserved communities, and that is the third question. How does the project provide access for or engage underserved communities? We decided to do this basically as bullets. The festival's free, so there's no financial barrier. Goddard Memorial State Park is centrally located. The park has flat open fields that are wheelchair accessible or more accessible to those with mobility disabilities. We have folks prepared to speak in different languages, etc. Right? So any of those things you might be doing to engage underserved communities. Here we'll upload any bios, resumes, or CVs you have for artists involved in the project. If we've got a community choir, I don't expect a bio for every member of the choir, but maybe give us the conductor or some of the key artists that you're featuring as part of the project. For different artists, this takes different forms. Some have CVs or resumes that make sense. For others, it's an artist biography. You can decide. And if you have questions there, because sometimes it can be a little tricky for some projects, please reach out. If you have a website or social media, you can provide us with that link. If your organization or the artist has a Creative Ground profile, you can include that. If you don't know what that is, that's something available through New England Foundation on the Arts. You do not need to go get one if you don't already have one. It won't help your chances. This is just if you already have it. A link to an artist's website if applicable, or social media for the artists. All right, the work samples list. Remember, this is where I told you we have a template. You're going to download it here. You're going to upload it right underneath. This is where you are orienting the panelists to the work samples that you will provide. You can provide up to 3 work samples showing how the artists involved have experience relevant to this project. We have additional details there. I won't read all of it in the interest of time right now. But we do have limits on the number of images, pages, minutes of recordings that you can include. That's to focus the panelists' attention so that they are really looking at those best possible examples. You'll provide the work samples in a Google Drive link, and you can either not password protect it, or if you want to have it password protected, there's a field to provide us with the password so that the panelists are able to see that. And then the last question here is community engagement. How does the project actively engage participants in making, experiencing, or learning about art? And so here I'm describing the ways that participants will get to engage in the art making process for mine, as well as being engaged as audience members. All right, you'll upload your testimonial, and that's it. So that's the big chunk. That's the content. It's going to happen there. When I'm done, I'm going to scroll all the way back up. I'm going to say, wow, my drafts were too long. So I'm just going to save this as a draft right now because I want my colleague to go in and look at it and give me some ideas about where to cut. So then you'll see that still in draft mode. The last form, very briefly, is a standard state form that we are required to include. You'll have to provide information about who you are and the name of the project again, as well as your congressional district, which you can find online. You can cut and paste the exact same project summary. Please do not write a second one. Just use what you've already written. And the most confusing question for folks here is it's going to ask whether you're doing an evidence-based intervention. This is because it is a statewide form. The panel will not see this, and it is not part of your evaluation. So if you're like, well, yes, actually, we have our therapists involved, and this is an evidence-based intervention, feel free to click yes, but you can also click no or not applicable. There will not be any penalty, okay? You'll check off if any of these boxes connect to your project, the municipalities that will be served through your program. And that is about it here. You'll certify that everything you said was true. Go back up to the top. Should have been in edit mode. I'm going to save that as complete. Uh-oh, I haven't signed it yet. I can't save it as complete. So if you try to save something as done and you're not done, there are required fields you haven't completed, it will pop up an error message. So you won't be able to submit until that's complete. So once you turn all three of these green, a button to allow you to submit will appear right here. It's gray right now because I'm not done. You won't be able to submit until it's complete. And then that will turn color and you will be able to submit your application. All right, I'm going to stop the sharing. That is the complete overview. I know it is quite lengthy, but I hope this was a helpful step-by-step through the process. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions along the way.